Hello, hi.
Hello.
This is your host, Erica Mosley, aka Sexy, and we got Tiana Walks in the house. Porter, what's going on?
Hi, how are you?
How you doing? I'm so glad that you are here today, girl.
Me as well. Thank you so much for inviting me on your platform. I'm very grateful to be here. I'm very excited. I can't wait to get to this tech tea. We about to have some good conversations and we gonna talk about it.
Girl, where you currently located, and how's the weather?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm located out of that Triple D, aka Dallas, Texas, born and raised.
Oh,
And so the weather is weathering right now. So this is like our first real October. So it's actually feeling like fall. And for Dallas natives, we usually don't really have fall into November.
okay.
So the fact that it's actually chilly and cool, and I'm like, oh, it's time for sweaters and boots.
Oh wow,
So yeah, it's the weather and is weathering. We in the 60s and 50s
it's weathering.
right now, but we loving it.
So for here in San Francisco, it's kind of it's we call it Indian summer. So right now it's hot and warm and everything. Yeah, we it's kind of beachy over here. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's kind of weird since everybody else is kind of cold, but we're kind of warm and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's kind of bipolar. And I just want to say hey to the channel 29, SF Commons, LinkedIn Live, Facebook, and YouTube. Say hi to everybody, Tiana girl. You're all in the house.
Oh,
Yes,
people
because
are
we
asking
are.
about the links, girl. Where the links at so we can drop them and give it to them.
Yes, and we have some comments here. Isaiah said they glad to be here.
Thank
T
you.
says she glad to be here too as well. I'm so happy. Yeah, we had bad connection last time, but guess what? We back into
But
it.
we, but we back and we better.
All right, so tell me about yourself, girl. So, we met on LinkedIn. I saw your little post. You have great posts as well,
Thank
and I
you.
was just like, let me go ahead and give this girl her flowers. And I noticed that you have about like 16,000 followers. When I got in contact with you, I think you had about what, like 14, 15,000 followers. What's going on? Tell us about yourself and yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit about me, you guys. I number one. I'm black. I don't know if y'all know that, but I'm black. I want to go ahead and say that. I'll be rooting for everybody black. I'm blackity black black. So long story short, I've been in the TA/recruitment space for 8 years. Oh, actually, a little over 8 years because of the fact that I made my 8th year anniversary in September. So yay me for that. I definitely, thank you so much. I specialize in software engineering recruitment or just all versions of technical. So, top tech talent would be software engineering, data scientists, the three P's, which are project, program, and product managers. Then, I specialize in from senior level all the way up to directorial level. And then maybe even some others because I've definitely worked for C suite as well. So I can support, everybody that I need to. I've been in the tech space for a little over 7 years now. So yeah, it wasn't intentional. I just went where the money resided, and I could care less about who I support or who I don't support. It doesn't have to be tech specific, but I do like recruiting for my tech talent, and I've had much success throughout the years. So that's a little bit about me.
So yeah, I always like to really get into it and stuff like that and nitty gritty. Like how did you like get into the tech world? Like how did you get into the recruitment? Did you have experience? Like do you have a background as coding? That's a lot of the questions, like the nitty gritty. You've been in it for 8 years, but let's go back from the beginning. How did you even get involved? I know Texas is a big tech world, but 8 years ago as well for a black girl.
So actually, Texas is not big in tech at
Okay.
all, to be honest. We're a gas and oil state first. We always and forever will be. So the gas and oil is king here, so that's what really makes a lot of the revenue in Texas. However, tech has started to come slowly but surely into Texas because of the fact that a few years ago, Texas, gave kickbacks to Californian companies or outside companies, specifically California, where they were getting tax credits and tax breaks for them to give their companies here. So now we have Tesla. Now we have, we've been had Salesforces into it, but those are the only places that we really had. So when I was working for Microsoft, they were planning on building. It's a plug. They were planning on building Microsoft hub here. You know what I mean? So in the Dallas, Metroplex, because they wanted to be that first initial tech hub here. But now Austin is the tech hub. It got Google, it has Meta, it has Facebook. I mean, no, yeah, it got Google, it got Meta, it got Microsoft, it got everybody over there.
That's
Tesla
so
too.
true.
So
Right.
I mean, it's like it's Hunger Games for tech out in Austin. But where I'm at right now in Dallas, as far as that is concerned, no, not really. We only have Salesforce and Intuit here. You know.
Okay.
Now, as far as how I got into tech per se, I was a recruiter when I was in college. That's how I was able to actually, afford to be even at college in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fact that, being that I actually did that as my job, I was actually able to get scholarships and things like that. So I was a campus recruiter for a little over a year while I was at Oklahoma State. And I did love it. I really specialized in making sure that I could be able to ease racial tensions between, like NPHC and then also PHC, as far as like the National Panhellenic Council,
Mm-hmm.
which are like Black and white sororities and fraternities. And then also making sure that I was able to put, my students, my peers into an alignment with where they were going for
Right.
as far as
Career track.
career paths. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they're in college. They just feel like, okay, well, as long as I get a degree, but there are what I consider throwaway degrees. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? But that are not really going to help you later down the line. So, as far as like that's where I started, and as far as like how I got into tech, I was actually working for a telecommunications company, which
Mm-hmm.
is a form of tech. I mean, because really it is, but people don't like to consider that. But let's be real, it is. And then from there, I was able to go into technical worlds outside of that because I worked in telecommunications. And from there, it just kind of went up. I wasn't trying to look for tech. Tech
how,
found
how did you went from that world? Did you get a mentor? Did like how did that happen? Did you start looking on the career page? How did you
me.
know that you wanted to continue going to the tech world?
I didn't care about, I feel like the reason why I'm different maybe versus a lot of other people, I wasn't looking for tech specific, which a lot of
Mm,
other people were. I was looking for number one, prosperity, but also number two, purpose. Where was I going to be the most purposeful? And
yes.
who was going to be able to pay me? I care about my money. I don't care
Mhm,
about the industry. So if I can make money in tech, I can make money in tech. And I've stated once before, tech found me. I didn't find tech. Every
mhm.
time I've ever been able to get into a different industry, it's because someone reached out to me and they thought I would be a good fit. And so I was sourced out for specific opportunities. And
Mhm.
I never went to go intentionally looking for it. Because before I even got into tech outside of recruitment at Oklahoma State, I was an executive assistant for years.
Mhm.
I enjoyed that a lot. I was a very good executive assistant, but I often say, like, as an EA, you can be able to do recruitment because you have to be able to be on the ball all day,
Yes.
every day. And if I wouldn't have been a recruiter right now, I probably still would have been an executive assistant, honestly.
And you use some of the same skills, you know what I mean? You
Okay,
use
scheduling,
the same skill
negotiation,
set.
all of that
It's the
executive
same thing.
administrative assistant. That is the
Everything
most comparable role to a recruiter you have, honestly speaking.
in sales.
Yes, true, definitely. Because, people state that recruitment is sales. However, I don't believe so because it depends on what part of the recruitment you stand. If you are an in-house recruiter for a company, no, it's not sales because the company is going to sell itself. You either want to work for the company or you don't. Now, staffing agency, that's a completely different ball game because they got to go find the talent. They have to sell it to you because without that contract or without that opportunity, they don't get paid. They get a base salary, but a good chunk of them are really relying on their commissions because that base salary is not going to cut it. So they're looking to place people into those roles that they have for those corporate clients. However, for in-house recruiters, we don't need to do that because that role is still going to be there and a person is going to want to work there
I just
regardless.
I also just feel like it's also a sales game too, as well, because as you know, as a senior recruiter, I have to sell the experience to you. I have to sell the company as well. You might be working at, I don't know, this we making a company name up, right? A tech tea company, and they've been out for 30 years, right? And now I'm trying to tell you to come over to Net Tea, right? And you're like, why should I come over to Netsy, right? So I have to really sell you to why you should come over to Netsy. Hey, girl, Tiana, we got all the diversity over here. You know what I mean? We have resources, etc., etc. So I feel like it's also a sales game as well because I don't just jump onto any company. You know what I mean? You really have to sell me and make sure that I'm going to be a great fit. And not only that, I'm going to feel comfortable here as well. Sell me with the company. I don't care if it's Meta or if it's Tesla or if it's Amazon. I really need to know that I'm going to be a great fit and that I'm going to grow and that you're going to have resources as well. Besides just saying that, oh, I work at, you know, such and such. What does that even mean, really?
You
What does
know,
that even mean?
you're bringing up some very valid points. For me, I think of things a little bit different as a recruiter because I've told my companies, every company that I work for, if you don't have the thought process of the candidate comes first, I can't work for you. So, because at the end of the day, employees are what makes the company what it is.
Hmm.
Executive leadership is fine and great, but you cannot run a company, a successful company, only with executive leadership. You
Hmm.
still are going to have talent below you in order to do that grunt work, right? So they are what makes your company great. The executives are only the people that gets blamed for things when things go great or
Right.
when things are good or bad. Now, as far as my experience in recruitment, I don't sell candidates. I don't do that because at the end of the day, you're going to pull my card and you're gonna be like, And usually, more often than not, job seekers and candidates they hate the fact when they feel like they're being sold something. A great product can sell itself. And so my job when I get into executive leadership, when I get into my hiring managers meetings and making sure that I'm researching the company, I want to be able to state, well, this is what the company can do,
Yes.
what the company has to offer. This is the collaboration piece. This is our company culture. And at that point, now I'm deducing not only will that person be a good fit for the company, but will the company be a good fit for the person? Because
Right.
there have been a plenty of people that I've interviewed, and personally, I feel like they would be good at the role, but I don't feel like they would be good for the company. And you never want to place someone in an opportunity to where they stay and then boom, 6 months later they're somewhere else down the line, right? So
Have you ever noticed that sometimes, most of the time, people want to join the company because of you, right?
yeah,
Not because of the big names or anything like that. It's because
absolutely.
of you.
When I had Microsoft by my title, I did not need to go out and find candidates for real, because people are going to come to you. Anybody in
Yes.
fame, to be honest, Meta, you should know this, Microsoft, Google, Apple, Netflix, which nobody really ever talks about, but everybody still wants to work there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody wants to work for one of those corporations.
Right.
Now, does everybody have the qualifications to meet the needs of those corporations? Majority of people do not. But at the end of the day, those companies speak for itself because they're gonna pay you well.
Yes.
They're gonna have great benefits. You're not gonna really need anything. You're not gonna be struggling. And that's what people go after. So there are some companies that, names speak for itself because I don't know not one person that if they had an offer from Google, they wouldn't take it. You know what I mean? For example. So, that's just my piece.
Yes, and I really love that as well. And then next we're going to talk about how did you gain your followers. But have you also noticed too as well, diverse candidates or even candidates with PhDs is scared to even interview due to the fact of maybe it's Amazon or Meta, etc. And being that you are a diverse candidate, you have to explain to them, hey, I'm going to help you through the whole process, etc. Have you noticed that they are very
Of course.
intimidated and even though they have all the qualifications etc., they don't even want to apply.
Well, we can definitely talk about that conversation because the truth of the matter is African Americans specifically, if we're just talking about Black people, since you and I are both Black, we do not have the representation across corporate fields that we need to, period, in a story. And if we're talking about tech talent, we we definitely don't have it. When it comes down to these technological companies, just a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, it could have been just last year, there was that viral post that went, that I think the CNN reported, the percentage levels of executive black leadership at every
Mhm.
major FANG company, and it was in the 1 percentile for each. That made people who were African American completely feel defeated, because they're like, there really is no chance for me to be able
Yeah.
to get into these corporations. Then on top of that, we don't get hired at the same rate as our white or Asian counterparts, right? So yeah, and imposter syndrome runs deep within the African American community.
Mhm.
I'm really trying to figure out if I'm still going to be using this terminology, because
Mhm.
research that I found out, because apparently someone, per research, I just recently found out that it was coined by a white woman. And so there was a lot of debate amongst people in the doctoral space, and then of course in that particular kind of space, that we're like, we don't know if the reason behind her coining this term was for us to feel worse about ourselves versus if this is actually true. So there's a lot of debate regarding the imposter syndrome, but
Yeah.
it does affect majority of people who are BIPOC. So it's black, it's indigenous, it's people of color, it's Hispanic. We primarily feel that we don't have, if we even are qualified, we won't get the offer because if someone else, like for example, Jake or Carol is
Yeah.
in the interview loop, we're probably like, okay, well, we're more than likely not going to get it. And then on
Right.
top of that, black people are afraid of being black at their company. We've
Mm.
always been there when we've always felt like that, either
Mhm.
racial microaggressions with our hair, our
Mhm.
personality, the way we speak. Um,
Mhm.
we could have a twang to the way we talk, and then it could be perceived as we're too urban.
Mhm.
So those are examples of things that black people have to face when they're interviewing for whatever company, let alone a tech company.
Right. That's definitely heavy, and I'm glad that you touched on that. And we can definitely maybe have a part two about imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure you had it before I had it before. You know what I mean? Just being the only black person at a company. You know what I mean? You get that. You know what I mean? You don't for sure.
For years,
It's a thing.
the
Uh,
youngest and the only. It's so, and that's
yeah,
always been my experience.
that's always been my
I'm the
experience.
youngest and the only. Not
Yeah.
only am I the only, forget black person. Not I'm a double minority. I'm a black woman, so I'm
Right.
the youngest, and then I'm the only.
Right.
Always uncomfortable. Always.
Always.
Because it's like, okay, so you can tell I was here for
So what,
diversity.
so what that means that you always have to be the leader of black people. That's what that means. You know what I mean? So that means that you technically have to be perfect in a sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You
You
have to
definitely
be.
feel like you have to, because you're pioneering at that point.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, from my experience when in corporate America, especially from my Caucasian counterparts, you feel that you are being judged on behalf of all black people. So whatever you
That too.
do is going to make or break if they hire any more black people. And what someone recently, had spoke about is, do white people never think that it's a good idea to have executive leadership boards and every last one of them look the same? I said no, because white people don't think about that. However, if diversity is not what you wake up to do in the first place, which 9 times out of 10, a white person's life is going to be always different from someone who's black, Hispanic, a minority. If that's not your frame of reference, you of course you're not going to think about it any other way. An executive leadership of all white people doesn't bother you,
Until
but
it's needed. Yes.
was Hispanic, someone who was black, and we see that, we're like, we know for a fact we are not going to either be respected, we're going to be experiencing racism, racial microaggression. Somebody is going to say something about my hair.
And
And
that could be a problem too. How do you know for a fact? How do you know for a fact? That can be a problem too, because sometimes you can exit yourself out too. You know what I mean? How do you know for a fact that you're not going to be welcome.
Yeah, how do you know for a fact? And that's the hit or miss.
Yeah.
Because what Black people typically go on, or Hispanics typically go on, they go on based off their previous experiences from
Yeah.
look the same, right?
Yeah.
Because what is troubling for me is when a company states that they have a they have an emphasis on diversity, equity, inclusion, and then I look at their executive leadership board, and there is nobody diverse in the cut. It's all white men,
Okay,
all
so when you look at the board, what do you mean when you look at the board? Do you go onto their websites and see at the boards? Are you going on LinkedIn to see
I
about
go
the
to two different
co-workers?
things. I go on two different things. I number one go on the company's website and do what they about.
Hmm.
And typically with any company that's worth their salt, they're going to have pictures of
Yeah, the pictures. I look at the pictures too.
at that point, I'm looking for number one, I'm off that, I'm looking for racial diversity off
Yeah.
that. And then I'm also looking at how many men and women, what is the men and women ratio? Typically, from what I see with the executive leadership companies, I've noticed that, well, not executive leadership companies, that's not a thing. From companies that have executive leadership posted, 9 times out of 10, it's usually all white men. There's not
Yeah.
even forget even having women. It's typically just all white men. Then, if there is diversity within the executive leadership board, it's a mixture of white men and an of Asian descent persons.
Yeah,
We're
I
talking about
see that
Indian, we're
too.
talking about Japanese, we're talking about Chinese, we're talking about Korean, and then they're all male.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, well you have diversity, but at that point there is no gender diversity.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. So I think about that. So
Yeah.
when I go on LinkedIn and I go to your company and I pick the people tab,
Yeah, I look at the
at
people.
that point, I'm looking for what the company looks
What
like.
the company looks like.
So if I scroll down a good four, three, four times and everybody look the same like this,
First I go to the company and I want to see like, okay, how many what people look like in my role. Okay, so I'm a recruiter. Let's see, you know what I mean? Uh uh um um Taxi company recruiter, right? And then I look down and see the recruiters, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I see two recruiters, or maybe, and then I see the location. You know what I mean? Maybe like look at the location. All right, I see a lot of them in at different locations. So I'm glad that you like really breaking this down because we really need. And then I like the tech drama too, as well. Like you said, maybe we are going through what our past experience. You know what I mean?
thank
And then
you. I appreciate you, girl, because I want to see that for myself too. I be applying, girl. Thank you.
yes. Yeah, Shakina, you see the comments? Yes, we want to say hi to
Yes,
everybody.
girl. Like I thank you for bringing that out because I be applying and be getting denied. So
Oh, because that's another thing. Because I have noticed too, as well, DEI roles is HR. It's not about community development. That's another thing we can definitely touch on. But DEI is not about community development and
absolutely
diversity, inclusion, and getting people
right.
together and onboarding like we thought it is. And then the community thinks that diversity is about black people. Diversity in our world, we think that means black. But when you come to the tech world, that does not mean black.
Well, when you come to the DE&I world and you, regardless of race, if you are a black person, you think of diversity as seeing how many people look like you in a company,
Yeah.
period. And if you are Hispanic, you typically will think about how many people are Latino or Latina, right? But what we need to start thinking about is diversity is not only racial, right? However, technically, if we're being specific, if a company is all white, regardless if it's male or female, it is not considered diverse just off the strength of that alone. And if you're in the technical world, an Asian hire is not considered a diverse hire because majority of the people who work in tech are of Asian descent. So that's not
So
considered
yeah, it depends on the company what they consider like
that's not
diversity
considered
and
a diverse hire. And that's just in tech generally.
so
But
isn't that something? Isn't that something that's always a back and forth because it's a tech barrier between what diversity and inclusion actually means between the candidates in the tech companies. So nobody really knows what diversity and inclusion mean. That's you're coming in from a candidate, and you're like, oh, diversity and inclusion means me. But then the tech companies meaning like, no, that can mean anything. You know what I mean? That
Right.
can mean
So
disabled person.
the D in diversity really means racial. It means representation of people's faith and beliefs, and then also neurodiversity.
Fact.
So, faith and beliefs, and as far as how a person lives, I mean LGBTQIA, right? So when the D happens, we're talking about racial, we're talking about LGBTQIA, we're talking about whatever. What was I just saying? We're talking about faith and beliefs. So people of all religions and all beliefs, and then we're also talking about neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is people with disabilities or, falling under that spectrum. So we're talking about your autism, your ADHD, because most people don't talk about that part of that diversity either.
Right.
Because to be honest, I've worked in corporate America for over, 9 years of my life. I've never seen someone just no I've never seen someone in a wheelchair.
That's what I like
But,
about my company because
you
we have
know
that
what?
too. I
But
see what you're saying. Yeah.
I've never seen someone in a wheelchair.
Right.
And with everybody being remote, then you don't know how everybody is living. But
Mhm.
I've never seen someone, on a virtual conference and they've been in a wheelchair. I've never seen
Mm.
a paraplegic before. And then, I would really actually hope that I would see more people who have been in our military at some point in time in corporate America. And majority of them are not there either. And that bothers me too. Because these people, once they get out of the military life and they try to go into civilian life, they have a lot of struggle getting into where we are at. And it shouldn't be like that. If they can sacrifice their life for our country, we should be able to see more of them within our corporate field, regardless of whatever genre, because it can still be applied to our our civilian lifestyle. So, that's an example of what as far as like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Right now, the equity is all about. For me, it's all about
Mhm.
pay. Are you paying someone the same as
Same
paying whoever?
across
So
the board.
if if you gave Todd, let's just say Todd was a middle-aged white man for the same role,
Right. It's
the
nice that he's in a wheelchair. Hello.
let's just say like he was in, you know what I mean, like a middle-aged white man, you offered him 175K and the salary band was up to 200,000 and he
Hmm.
had this many years of experience. But let's just say for Jacquees, which is a black middle-aged male,
Yeah.
and the salary band was the same 200K, and you offered him 100,000 and he had more experience than Todd. At that point, we are now going into a stronger racial wealth gap because
Yeah.
it's definitely a thing. It needs to be talked about more.
Yeah.
And the equality of pay is not there as well. It's not equitable at all. Women are still making less than men. And then on top of that, we get into how much less we make based off of our race at that point. So, for the same level of work, for the same level of years, for the same education, are you paying someone who is white more just because of that? So,
Okay. And for the people in the back, because I love to ask people these questions so that way we can break down diversity, and belonging. What does belonging mean to you? For the people in the back.
okay, for the people in the back, we want to hear from y'all.
No, from you, from you. That mean like from you,
Oh,
meaning from the people in the back, like that don't really know what diversity and inclusion really means, and then the belonging. What does that mean for you, like the belonging?
the belonging for me, when I go to a company, I want to make sure that Tiana can be Tiana without judgment, without someone always watching me, the microaggressions or the micromanagement. Well, we saw your LinkedIn post and we felt da 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 da. I want to be able to just be me. I want to be able to come to my company and not just exist and live on a day to day basis. I want someone to care about my mental health. I want someone to be able to know that we are a team, we're collaborative, we are one at the end of the day. And what I've seen, especially in the TA space within as many years as I've been in recruitment, people have a very sharp mindset. You're over here and I'm over there, but we're working for the same goal. We're still working for the same company. I don't know why we're not on the same page. You know, you got your candidates, I got my candidates. No, it shouldn't be like that. And,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, we're all here. We all work for the same company and we are under the same umbrella. At that point, we need to be able to be on one accord.
Yes.
I don't like the discord that
Mm,
happens within the HR and the TA space
okay.
because a lot of the times it feels extremely segregated. And I'm not
Mm,
talking about racially, it
yeah.
just feels very, you're over there, I'm over here. I'm
Yeah.
the manager, so you do what I say. No, 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 no. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be like that. So when you're talking about a sense of belonging, you're talking about a sense of, I hate to say it like this, but it's the truth. Can I be able to come undressed? I hope when I'm saying, and I'm not talking about it like that, but can I be able
With my
Can I
soul and
be able
who
to
I am.
can I not be able to feel like I have to put on a facade or a mask or let me just be smiling in your face and then when I get off I'm like I hate this job. No, that's what belonging is to me. Now belonging to someone else, you know, it can be something else differently. But I'm for me, I want to make sure that the company that I represent, they're caring about what happens to you on and off the court, regardless if you're working or not working. It's still in a general like we got you as a company. We are here for you. So
I love that definition. And since we're gonna narrate it to the followers, right? So when you say you want to be comfortable on LinkedIn, right? Or just comfortable on social media, how did you gain your followers? Was that because you working at a certain company? Is it because of you yourself, or is it because you're posting, you helping other people? What is it, and how can you help others gain more followers on their LinkedIn? What do you think?
for me, I always say the reason why I even got the platform that I have on LinkedIn is because of God, because I could have cared less about LinkedIn. I'm 26 and I just turned 26. The only reason why I even have a LinkedIn profile is because I was in the Spirit School of Business on an accelerated track, double majoring in marketing and entrepreneurship. And they told me everybody needs to have a LinkedIn. But at that point, I was like, LinkedIn is for old people. Why am I on there? You know? And that was when I was in college. That's what I thought, truthfully. So I never was on LinkedIn all those years ago because we're talking about the year 2015 when I had to create a LinkedIn. I wasn't on there. I wasn't posting. I wasn't doing none of that because I'm like, this is for old people. Like I don't need to be on here. And one
Not
day,
old people.
that's what I really felt. If we're being honest, let's just talk about it. So I one day, you know, late last year, as a matter of fact, I was like, I'm at like 500. I'm at like 500 connections. Okay, I thought that was a lot. You
Yes,
know what I
it
mean?
is.
Because like I wasn't going out looking for these people. People just connected with me throughout, you know, the time. But I started seeing that people had it popping on LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, people are talking about stuff. We can talk on this platform. I didn't know that's what this was for. I thought you could just apply to jobs and keep it pushing. And so I didn't know people could talk. And so when I started seeing people speak on certain things that I wanted to talk about, I was like, you know what? If talking is just what it all we got to do, I'm about to start making some of these posts. And then all of a sudden, after I started posting, I noticed that these many connections would, you know, hit me up or want to connect.
Yes.
I was like, wow, okay. Then, when I had interviewed with Meta earlier this year, I created a Marching to Meta series. And when I was going through the full loop, they even brought that up. They were like, we love your Marching to Meta series that you created about, you know, Meta. And I was like, y'all saw that?
Yeah, right.
And a lot of people like girl like and it attracted attention from people who work for Meta. I'm
Mhm.
talking about director level leadership, management level leadership, people who were in all different type of roles, project managers, program managers. So people were connecting with me off that. So that was my first big boom for when it came down to how many people started to follow me. Then my next big boom was when I worked for Microsoft. And so I've learned, especially when it comes down to LinkedIn, people connect with you, especially when you are a recruiter, especially when your name is attached to big companies, because they want to be able to get to know you so they can be able to work for that said company too.
Mhm.
A lot of people feel like a lot of people try to pimp recruiters. I hate to say it.
Oh Lord, that's another thing we can talk about. That's funny.
A lot of people try to pimp recruiters. Like, what can you do for me? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Not knowing that at the end of the day, I work for the company. I don't work for you directly. That's paying me,
Oh
right?
man.
And so, like, there's two different types of LinkedIn's. We have our personal LinkedIn, which is what I post off of, and
Right.
then we have LinkedIn Recruiter. And so, when Tiana's in LinkedIn Recruiter mode, I'm reaching out, I'm sourcing, and I am trying to find top talent for my job.
Company. Right.
Or my personal LinkedIn is my personal LinkedIn. Tiana does not actually have to respond to her messages because, to be honest, bro, 2,000 messages,
Mm.
I don't need to. And you get people who really get upset at the fact
Mm.
that you're not, talking to them, but and it's not intentional. Then on
And
top
then you
of that,
can't because it's so overwhelming.
it is, and but they don't understand that. I
Yeah.
had this one woman was like, "Why are you complaining about doing your job?" I said, "Ma'am, respectfully, my personal LinkedIn profile, where I build my own platform, has nothing to do with my job. This is Tiana. I was Tiana before said company. I'm going to be Tiana after said company. The platform that I build is my own brand. I don't actually have to respond to my personal LinkedIn messages. And sometimes I try to avoid responding to my LinkedIn messages for my mental health because of the fact that I am a very empathetic person. I wear what my people are going through and I think about it. And being that I am a follower of Christ, I always think about people before myself. That's what I always have been, and that's what I've always have done. And people unpack their emotional distress onto you. I've
Yeah.
had people message me, "You need to help me because I'm about to leave I'm about to
Yeah.
leave foreclosure my home. I'm going through
Yeah.
bankruptcy. I'm homeless."
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that is so much for me because Tiana cannot actually change you from being homeless. Unfortunately,
And then you
Tiana,
only working on a specific role. You see what
you
I'm
are
saying?
working on a specific role, but they're just seeing your
Role.
title and the company that you work
Yeah.
for
Right, right, right.
automatically
Let's
assume.
say that again. Let's say that again. We only working on specific roles. It can be from 10 to 15 roles. We're not working on the entire company roles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
So you only are in charge of very specific roles, but the average population doesn't know that, right?
yes.
When they see a recruiter to a company, they just think you have all these roles and you know for a fact you got the juice, you get them a job. And the thing is, recruiters are liaisons between the company, the candidate, and the hiring managers. Hiring managers make the decisions. At that point, we do need to advocate for who we feel like would be best, but hiring managers are going to always do what they want to do. It's been a couple of hiring managers that I've worked with that they did not listen to anything that I had to say, and then they ended up going on their own route and then end up regretting it later. Because I was like, I told you shouldn't have had such and such. Because some
right,
gonna leave within a few months. But
right,
no,
right, 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 right.
you know what I mean? They have, I think a lot of hiring managers have unrealistic expectations because, they want people to witness the birth of Jesus. They want someone to be able to have a molecular PhD requirement. They wanted someone to have built a dissertation for the college that they went to. And then on top of that, is studying macroeconomics on the side. Unrealistic,
Not
right?
the birth of Jesus. Oh my God.
No, that's unrealistic, right? I often tell the hiring managers that I support, if you want a person that fits 100%, why don't we break down that 100%? Do they have over 80% of their required qualifications? Yes.
Hmm.
And is the other 20% teachable?
Yes.
The other 20% is teachable and they meet over 80% of the rest. At that point, you have a solid candidate. Now, what I do want job seekers and candidates to understand is that there are so many people that thinks that there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. That's not necessarily true. I've met a few.
right, 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 right,
I've
right.
met a few
Perfect
mermaids,
candidate.
unicorns, fairies, leprechauns. You thought
Yes.
that they didn't exist. They exist.
You just have to know how to source them out and make
One
them feel
thing,
comfortable.
one thing about tech, it's going to bring out everybody. It's gonna bring out my milkshake. Bring all the boys to the yard. Yep,
Yes, it does.
it brings them
Period.
out. Especially if you work for a top corporation.
Oh
Oh, child,
man.
Oh, it's a
Oh,
few unicorns.
and you're black?
Oh my
Oh
God.
man.
It's a few. It's a few unicorns, and it sometimes comes down to the point to where everybody is in the debrief like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know because these two candidates are that strong, and I don't technically want to lose the other one. So I want to get us away from that because candidates who don't
So
do
here's
it.
so here's the question. It's this question. Are you here to get candidates right to help build your the product to serve people that look like me, or serve people that look like the people that you work with every day? Is your product looking like me, right? Am I the one that's going to be using your product? Like for example, like you got tech companies that offered 2 weeks payday, right? Who uses that type of products, right? And you got people that's working, not people that's working in that company, right? That looks like me. So who's your product serving, right? So are you trying to hire people that look like the people that you work with? Or are you trying to hire people um that buy your products? You know what I mean?
So, one thing I've noticed when it comes down to working in the tech, and we're just talking about technical companies, they don't think about things like that. They have a product that they have created to in order to serve a business model. And they're trying to figure out ways to be able to be innovative, but also get a leg up and cut the competition because the tech space is very, very competitive. So
Mm-hmm.
now you have these geniuses that just graduated from whomever that are partnering with other geniuses and trying to figure out what is going to be the next best thing and how is that going to be able to have money in our pockets. That racial thing, if you talk to anybody that's in software engineering,
Mm-hmm.
they don't give a damn about
Right,
nobody.
right, 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 right. That's what I'm saying. That's why I brought this up.
They're not coming from that. So when it comes down to working for a technological corporation, you have to understand the company's mission, and it's not necessarily race. How are we going to be able to make money? How are we
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to be at a $15 billion valuation in the year 2022 and be at a $45 billion valuation in the year 2024? They're thinking about growth. They're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about revenue. They're thinking about how they're going to be able to beat whoever comes out with the next best thing because it happens all of the time. Tech is so competitive and it's always changing. I mean, the lingo sometimes I can't even keep up with. I just found out about a new tech stack the other day and I was like, when did that come out? When? And they were like, yeah, it was out a year ago.
Right, 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 right,
News to me. I'm still on Python and JavaScript.
right.
I just
Right,
know.
right, right.
I didn't know we was adding these
And
S.
Go is a big one too.
So right. So my thing is, when as a as an African American woman who's in recruitment, not only do I think about the racial ethnicity portion, I'm also thinking about who is going to further my company's mission and who's going to be the best fit for that. Because if you're really looking out for yourself, you're not going to be able to get us where we need to go. Truthfully.
So that's why I want to segue into with these layoffs, right? So that's the reason why I'm asking the question. So are they laying off right now? Are we laying off due to the fact that we reconstructing so that way we can continue to serve our customers correctly? Right? Or are we laying off? Right? We already know the answer, but I just want to hear your perspective of it, and then go back to this fact that I got. That 62% of jobs are held by white Americans, and only 7% of Black Americans held tech jobs. Right? And
Mm-hmm.
with these layoffs, do you think that's a correct estimate right now? Is it 62% of white people held the jobs and only 7%? Is that accurate? That seems kind of bizarre.
Well, let's go into what you first said. The reason why layoffs are happening is because of the fact that people overextended their business last year. Everybody and their mama was hiring technical recruiters, and these were people who never even did technical recruitment. So there was that. Everybody and their mama was hiring for a technical recruiter because companies thought that they were going to grow bigger than what they really did. That was one. They underestimated inflation. They underestimated the fact that we had just came from a pandemic less than 3 years ago, and a lot of people didn't really get that affected when the pandemic happened. Yes, a lot of people were involved and majority of people were unemployed, but for the most part, people were able to kind of like recuperate back into a working environment some way, somehow. So companies thought that they didn't take that big of a hit. And in reality, they did. And they're like, okay, we actually don't have that much money. And so, how do you get more money back? You lay off people, you start rifting roles. The roles no longer exist. And I would have never thought I would have lived to see the day to where TA and HR were the ones that were getting laid off.
Saw that.
And so that really bothered me because let's be honest, executives cannot recruit.
Right.
They can't. They don't know what to ask. They don't know what they're looking for. You have to kind of like carry your executives by the hand. Like, hey, this I feel like this candidate would be such and such. And when they go ahead and they interview, they're kind of piggybacking off of some of the things that you say. We have to be
Right.
guide our hiring managers at
Right.
times.
They don't know the languages. They don't know.
They
Right. They
don't.
don't know any of that. Right.
So what kills me is that I'm seeing all these recruiters, all of these HR talent, because whole teams were getting slashed, and people thought it was just contractors. Nah, you know what I mean? Because for some reason we have this notion that if you're a contractor, there's no such thing as you getting laid off or you not being able to lose your
Oh,
job.
really? Who
Oh,
said
I've seen
that?
all of that on LinkedIn. People are
Oh,
just
wow.
you couldn't have gotten laid off at this company because you technically didn't work for the company.
Oh,
And I'm
right.
like, do you not know what a layoff means? Layoff means you lost your damn job, regardless if you were a contractor or not.
That's funny.
You know, because people have this notion out there in the public to where people believe that contractors are beneath people who have permanent roles. I don't
Right.
understand that because 9 times out of 10, a contractor is going to come in and they're going to be a self starter by themselves. They don't need any
Oh
handheld.
my God, we gotta talk about that on another
And
thing.
so the
Yeah.
thing difference between a contractor and a permanent employee is if things go left, the contractor is 9 times out of 10 on the chopping
Fact.
block. Also, contractors can't afford benefits because that shit is way too high. No disrespect, I wasn't trying to curse, but specifically, that shit is way too high. Yeah, it's offered, but it's really not offered because you're not going to take it.
Yeah.
So, you're taking on all of the risk for an opportunity, a fluffy
Opportunity.
opportunity for you to be able to think that you could possibly go permanent.
Possibly. What's the
And it's a
percentage?
strong
What's,
possible because at one
right.
time, contractors were actually getting converted. Like 10 years ago, when I first started really getting into
Yeah.
contracting, I started seeing people get converted. Like companies wanted to convert contractors. That is not the case anymore. People
Yeah.
are getting their roles backfilled, and then boom, bam, pow. Once we've gotten where we need to go, we're ending that assignment.
Do you
And
think they are telling people that they're going to be converting them when they know that they're not going to convert them at the end? Is that
you know
a
what? I
thing
don't really
too?
know, but you have to be able to sell it some way, right?
Yes.
What they're
Back to the sales.
in their offer letters is yes, this is a contract that is potentially to go up to. So you got to read the lingo. It
Yeah.
says up to potentially. We cannot guarantee
Right, right, right.
this. So because once again, you're taking a risk,
You're
right?
taking a risk.
You're taking a huge risk.
Yes.
And so it's a lot of discrimination that happens between permanent employees and
Yeah.
contract. People look at you less than because you took on
Yeah.
environment. And people think, and when you start to interview for these roles, they're over here like, why are you bouncing around so much?
Yeah.
I'm a contractor. But why are you not there no more? Why didn't you get converted? Well, have
Right,
you
right, right,
not been looking at what the market is?
right, right,
And
right,
they
right, right.
don't, because they don't really care about contractors.
Right.
So now that's that part as far as
Yeah.
layoffs and as far as what my take is when it comes down to what they're doing. Long story
Yes.
short, business is overextended. Well, companies overextended their business. They're laying off people so they can be able to make more room in the technical world for their tech talent. So they're software engineers because the
Yes.
software engineers are still getting
Bread
over
and butter.
dollar total compensation offers. I've
Yes.
seen it. I've witnessed it while people were
Never
getting
will go away.
off while people were getting their jobs laid off, these software engineers were getting 180K base, a $95,000 sign-on bonus, and $500,000 in stock options.
Yes.
They got their money, but everybody else is starting to scramble right before the holidays. Okay, now them diversity metrics is wrong. And let me go ahead and put you up on game. And I'll
Yes,
give you
girl,
some
because the
stats.
last one I saw was 7%. So if you're telling me that it's less than 7%,
So this was updated as far as this year, so the end of year 2022, according to CIO Dive. So 7 years, a 1% increase. Black representation in tech barely improving. That was the title of it. So Black professionals occupy 3.7% in technical roles at large tech companies, despite making up 13% of the overall labor force, according to the report found. So think about that really quick. Black people, first of all, let's just be real. 13% of the overall labor force for Black people is very small. But one thing I don't like is the fact that this doesn't state if that's a global or if that's nationally. But
hmm
13% period is just extremely a small number. Then you have it says 3.7 in technical roles at large tech companies.
yeah,
That
three.
means if we're dividing that 3.7% across all large tech companies, we're less than the one percentile in every company.
Yeah.
So on my LinkedIn platform, I specifically talk about specifically, I don't be trying to leave no room for, well, what about the such and such? I'm specifically talking about
About
Black
black
people
people.
because Black people are still facing systematic racism, discrimination, and prejudice to this day. Unless if you can tell me that you were excited, a person was excited to meet you, and then when you got to the virtual interview, they were shocked. You can't tell me anything. Those are things that we experience as Black.
Yeah,
Telling me that my fro is unprofessional because I have a fro without weave.
right, right.
How is my natural hair unprofessional? So I specifically the struggles of what goes on within African American people because we experience it more than any other race. And I am tired of other races or other people trying to not acknowledge at the fact that we don't go through more than any other race that has ever been in existence. I don't like that. And we're
Right.
still experiencing this.
And that's why I want to give you your flowers because I really appreciate you the speaking up for the black people because most of the time we get included in a group. We have to be included with the Asians and the Hispanics, which is fine. But at the end of the day, we we don't live with them on a regular day-to-day basis. You know what I mean? We don't have to interact with them unless we go outside. You know what I mean? Most of the time, black people live with each other. They in the projects, and white people live with each other. Unless you in a diverse city. So it's just like I really like to just focus on black people and figure out how we can maneuver out as well. And then the reality is, whenever you get into a group, you're going to be placed back into another group. You're never not going to be just a black individual trying to like thrive or anything like that. You have to be placed in somewhere else. Um, so my next question is, and it's basically the same thing, another fact that we already proven, right? And then you already talked about like what is like being black in tech, and then I'm going to go ahead and do like this fast answer. So remember I was telling you before, I'm just going to ask you just a series of questions, right, and no explanation, right? Just say yes or no, or just like or a question, right? So I'm just going to string these around. It's going to be like 15 questions. You don't have to explain or anything.
Mhm.
And let's see here. So, if you had to sleep in a shelter, would you sleep in a shelter or sleeping on your friend's couch?
Friend's couch.
Okay. Would you rather this is an or question, a small tech company or a large tech company?
Large.
Okay. This is an or question. Are they looking for a culture fit or years of experience?
Years of experience.
Have you ever been laid off before?
Multiple times.
This is an or question. Would you rather diversity, inclusion, resources, or would you rather a black manager? Okay,
Black
next
manager.
black manager. Okay. Um, so this is a yes or no question. Have you ever been the only black girl in your company, in the tech company? Okay, yes. All right, so this is an or question. Would you rather have a chef that's working at your tech company, or would you just rather work at home and then cook at home?
Chef.
The chef, she said. This is an or question. Is it period or let's go?
Period.
This is the or question. Remote or office?
Remote.
Okay. And this is a yes or no question. Is diversity and inclusion improving for people of color?
No.
Okay. And have you ever quiet quitted? Yes
No.
or no? Is Kanye West crazy? Yes or no?
Yes.
And what is the percentage of black people in tech? Is it 3% or 7%? But we learned that is
3.7.
3.7. Look at you, 3.7. So I hope you guys learn a lot for that. And then since you laugh at quiet quitting, I keep hearing you talk about quiet quitting, girl. What is quiet quitting? Everybody talking about it in our culture, like quiet quitting. Like,
Everybody is talking about it, but the thing is, that's not something that was new. A lot of
yeah.
that's like you basically people been quiet quitting their relationships for you know what I mean? Because apparently, before a woman cheats, they just mentally, get away from you first. They mentally disengage. And what
Hmm.
they're telling you is in a quiet quitting, people are just doing the bare minimum. They're not really saying anything. They're not speaking out on anything. And they're out here looking for something, in general. So they're not putting their best foot forward anymore. They're just giving you the entire 60%, just enough to do the bare minimum or maybe a little bit more than, and they're out. So for me, it doesn't really matter how a person does or doesn't quit. I don't even know why this is a conversation, honestly, because it's honestly irrelevant. Whether you loud or you quiet quit. So for me personally, I am a loud quitter. I'm gonna give you my 2 weeks and I'm gonna keep it pushing.
Hmm.
I'm gonna always do what I need to do. But the truth of the matter is you do need to be careful because you don't ever want to burn a bridge that you may have to cross back over, right?
Yes.
So, I'm not talking about companies that have maybe mentally, emotionally, verbally abused you. You've had sexual discrimination, racial microaggression, or racism, or just a terrible work environment. I'm not talking about that. But I'm saying that if you just maybe got tired of maybe your role and not feeling fulfilled, are not really, you know, feeling that this is not the opportunity you thought it would be, and then now you're doing just the bare minimum and trying to look for something else, to continue to just put your best foot forward. No, I'm not talking to break over your back, which is what a lot of people do, break their backs for an opportunity for a company that really doesn't care about them. Not saying to do that. However, still put your best foot forward just for yourself, because you never know when you may ever need a professional reference. You never know if you may have to go back to that,
Right.
because I've seen people who've left a company, didn't leave right, and then maybe their offer was, rescinded at the other company, and so they feel like they can go back to other company, and the other company
Yeah.
no. So just be mindful of how you decide to quiet quit, but how you quit is up to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think this was a wonderful conversation. I think we need a part two, girl. You know what I mean? I think we got stuck in different kind of questions and talk. It was a whole bunch of comments. They really enjoyed you. We had an hour conversation, guys, and like I said, this is just the beginning. I think we really need a part two. Do you have any last final thoughts? Any last comments? How can someone reach you?
So you can reach me at my LinkedIn profile, which is Tiana, aka That Bomb Recruiter, Watts Porter. If you ever, some of you people already follow me, so that's wonderful. I'm so grateful to have you as my connections. And I want you to stick around. I'm not going to be giving out my personal number, but I do have a company called TNT Consulting. The reason why it's called TNT Consulting is because I am the bomb. And what is TNT? The most deadliest explosive. So with that being said, I finally launched my business and I'm so excited to have it. I've already
Yes.
had some people that have DM'd me requiring the book. So, I'll be able to give you the consultation email as well as the services that I provide. I specialize in LinkedIn optimization, creation, resume revisions, resume additions, creating of resumes, etc. And my main focus though is interview prep, because majority of people
Yeah.
don't get offers because of
Yes, ma'am.
review. And so it's my goal to make sure that you exude confidence, not arrogance, but confidence, calm, cool collectiveness, and that you are ready to show the company what you have to offer. And that happens in the interview stage.
And that
So, with that being said, please feel free to book with me. And, I was so very grateful to be able to be on your platform as
we had fun, yes, and we talked, learned so
I
much.
love to be able to be on Recruiter T. It was delicious. So,
Yes,
you know,
good, 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 good. So next time we will have people come in, and if they want to ask comments, etc.
absolutely.
And
Q&A. That's the
yes,
that's the part two.
yes, that's the part two. We will let you guys come in and ask questions and have a feedback. Up to 10 people.
Up
So
to
all right, guys. My name is Erica Mosley, and till next time,
thank you. I hope you have an amazing day.
you do the same. Goodbye.